Call this meeting to order. All right, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Sandu,
Here.
Councilmember Campion,
Here.
Councilmember Lozano,
Here.
Mayor Lamson.
Here. Now we do closed session. Oh, is there any public comment before we adjourn to closed session?
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the City Council on non-agenda items. The public comment section is for the City Council to receive comments, except for brief responses to questions. No discussion or action may be taken on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Please limit comments to the maximum of 5 minutes. Speaker cards are located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers. Once completed, forward the speaker card to the clerk. Those persons wishing to speak on any item scheduled on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so at the time the item is being considered.
All right, and we have a budget workshop, and I believe Mr. Palazzo.
I'll just start us off and introduce Claire Tyson, our finance director. Going to do the bulk of the presentation tonight, but the whole idea behind this is, we have 3 new council members with a lot of questions on kind of the large picture of the budget process and what the budget entails. So instead of doing this 3 times, we thought we would do it with the council. And thank you for having the special workshop before your meeting this evening. I think it's going to be the first of probably a few more workshops that kind of drill into our budget and kind of that big picture. So tonight is just a big overview. Trying to get that understanding. If there are areas that we want to kind of drill into and look at a little bit more, then let's talk about that. And then if we may need to schedule future workshops to do that. I'm going to turn it over to Claire. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Lamson, council members. Tonight, we're going to look at the financial overview. As the city manager said, this is kind of a starting point. Each one of you come to your job here with certain knowledge and experiences that are going to be useful in this, in your decision-making process. This is going to add a layer onto that to kind of get everything into kind of a baseline. So we're going to go over things like terminology. We're going to go over things like what tools we use. We're going to go over different concepts all around the financial matters and what will be upcoming for you for decisions in the strategic planning, in the budget cycle, all of those things. So after this presentation, I would encourage you to go back and take a look at the budget, take a look at the CAFR, take a look at any of those materials on the website that might benefit you in your base knowledge, taking these concepts together with that. So let's get started. How does this work? Hold on. It's technical. Ah, look at that. All right. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about government finances. We're going to talk about fund accounting, which is terminology you'll hear a lot in government accounting. We're going to talk about the general fund revenues and expenditures, Parks and Rec revenue and expenditures, because they're critical to this process, utility funds. We're going to talk a little bit about cost allocation, financial challenges that we are facing, long-term financial plan, and financial planning next steps. What we're not going to talk about is we're not going to get into a lot of details in the financials. We're not going to talk about transactions. We're actually not going to talk about the details of the budget. So we won't talk specifically about dollars, although you're welcome to ask any questions, obviously. Let's see. Oh. One at a time? Oh, look at that. I can do that. So unlike a business, the focus is not the bottom line profit. So on a business, your focus for financials is the bottom line. What you can do in the operation drives your revenue. That is not the case with government. So with government, your revenue is really already determined for you. You may have some control over it, you may be able to impact it, but that impact comes years after an action you take. And then there are so many regulations or different authorities that contribute to the ability for you to bring that money in, that really it's not about the revenue, it's more about how do you budget for those revenues? So how are you going to spend those? Revenues can come in a couple of different forms, restricted versus general. Restricted revenues are for specific use. So the use of those monies are restricted by something. And usually it's another government agency, can be a grant, it can be gas tax. Measure R is one of your restricted revenue sources. The general or unrestricted are things used basically for city services. So examples, property tax, sales tax, those are unrestricted or general. Expenditures, usually they're either regulated, mandated, or discretionary. So regulated, that's directly connected to the restricted revenue. So the agency that's given you the source of funds is basically telling you what you can and cannot spend those expenditures on. Restricted uses have to do usually with grant funding, legal mandates. They can't be accounting, like there are certain things we're required to record in the books. Then the discretionary, let me double back. Non-discretionary expenditures may include things that the council has approved. So for a department, they will have non-discretionary expenditures that are connected to what has been approved by council. Council approved that salaries and benefits are going to be at these rates, which means that a department, that's not considered a discretionary any longer because there's decisions that have already been made around those dollars. So discretionary funds for a department become very small. They're really the cost of operating, and can you spend that money to get this service over here, or does it move over there? It's not a lot. Equipment replacements, special projects, those are discretionary for a department. Balanced budget, revenues equal to or greater than expenses. That's a goal. That's what we're striving for. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Fund balance reserves, they can be restricted, committed, or unassigned. Restricted means that there's something outside of this agency that restricted it. Grant's a great example. There are other examples that we could look at. Committed means that you, the council, has made a decision that we're going to spend those monies in a particular way on the reserve. Our reserve for the discretionary or the economic uncertainty, budget stability, that reserve is a committed reserve. The council has approved through their reserve policy. Unassigned means it's available. Available is kind of something we might want to talk a little bit more about, but it does include things like encumbrances. We have a commitment to a contract that's incorporated in unrestricted. We are managed by something called the Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB. So this comes up from time to time. You'll hear in your business, your accounting group has to follow GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. So do we. But that gets applied at the end in your CAFR, and we have to follow government standards throughout the year. So some guiding principles. Taxpayer dollars need to be used prudently. And the message here is there's never enough dollars. It's always scarce resources. It's not that you have all the money you want to be able to do all the things you need to do. So we just always walk in going, scarce resources. The resources we do have are to provide services that benefit many citizens, not just a few, because you don't have enough to make it spread to just the few. We represent the many. Try to budget wisely. It's easier said than done. And don't overspend the budget. And when we look at the budget, we look at it in different categories. So we do have the ability to move budget around, but within a fund, within certain kinds of high-level categories. And we'll talk more about that when we do the budget development. Establish a strong fiscal foundation, including adequate resources. Really important. The adequate reserves, very, very important, especially, we've learned this lesson just a few years ago. The city of Galt did pretty well with their reserves, whereas other cities did not. And they didn't have the reserves to weather the storm. So there's a lot of focus right now in my industry statewide about adequate reserves. Plan for the long term to maintain fiscal stability. In other words, there are things that will happen, decisions that may be made now that impact us 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And so we need to be prepared for that and be watching that. Ongoing costs should not exceed ongoing revenues. So let me kind of go into what ongoing costs are. Ongoing are things like salaries, benefits, something that you're going to spend every year. You make a commitment towards, and you spend that money. That needs to be tied to ongoing revenues. So if your revenues are such that you know there's some volatility in it, maybe I'm only going to get that revenue once every 3 years, you wouldn't want to spend that on something that has an annual cost. So we try to incorporate those concepts when we're looking at the budget. There are a few exceptions, and the exceptions are sometimes you will want to budget costs that are one time, excuse me, over and above your ongoing revenues because you've intentionally saved that money for that in your reserves, for whatever that project is. Encumbrances is a term you'll hear a lot in government. It has to do with if I have a contract or an obligation that has been approved, usually by council, but also by the purchasing policy, we actually encumber the funds, which means we set aside those monies in the budget to say, I've already made a commitment against that. And the intention of that, and we do it internally within our financial system so that we can actually see that that money's really gone. And the reason why we do that is so that we don't double spend money. So you hear that term from time to time. Policy decisions drive the budget and the operations. So the decisions that are made here and other policies that are generated from this council, that actually drives the budget. So we can't really move forward on budget until we have certain kinds of decisions. Some of those carry over year, like MOUs. I know based on what has already been approved, when did we do the MOUs? 2 years ago? 2 years ago? What next year's budget's going to look like because that MOU has already been approved. There are other things that we'll need council direction on. One of the big things is the strategic plan. That's really the core direction for us developing the budget. And I know you have sessions coming up later this month. We'll need input from those to be able to help guide that budget process. There's a reserve policy the City of Galt has, which is fabulous. Economic Stability Reserve, it's called, which is 25% of general fund and Parks and Rec Fund operating expenditures. We have that amount set aside. We'll take a look at the reserves in a minute. We also have in that policy assigned accrued leave. It's 20% of the total general fund accrued leave. We set that aside every year. And what that's saying is we're anticipating that 20% of that will be spent in the next year. So we're setting it aside. And then any council resolution approved items, such as capital projects or anything else, will go into that budget process. And then it's important to report and audit financial outcomes. We do an external independent audit annually. You'll see reports, financial reports periodically through the year. Those reports that are throughout the year will be a comparison of budget to actual. And the whole idea is that the budget is your measuring tool. That's what you're always going back to and saying, did I live within my means, basically? Did I stick to my budget? I do have things adding in. So, fund accounting, let me talk briefly about this. Basically what governments do is they separate revenues and expenses that are associated with each other into what we call funds. And funds are set up for separate activities, kind of like a business. If you had multiple businesses, you'd set each ledger up separately. It's kind of the same concept. They're categorized into 3 types. General fund, which is kind of self-explanatory. It's really the general services of the city. Special revenue funds, we'll talk a little bit more about those. And then enterprise funds. Enterprise funds are the ones that behave most like a business. There's 8 subgroupings. So in governmental funds, there's a general fund, special revenue, debt service, capital projects. Proprietary funds include enterprise funds. That's your water fund, your stormwater, those kinds of funds. Internal service funds, which we don't have. Private purpose funds, agency funds. Well, your agency fund is successor agency to the redevelopment. And here's some examples. So special revenue, we talked about Measure R, gas tax. The L&Ls are in this category, the firing range, CIP impact fees, and grants. They're all made up into special revenue. Parks and Rec Fund is really a hybrid. It includes restricted revenues based on AB 3773, and some of the revenue is not restricted because it covers the entire operation of Parks and Rec. Enterprise funds are the utilities. So I added in here some slides that some of you may have seen before. This is from the budget, the last budget cycle, and what it really tells you is where does money come from? So in our operation, we've got all these funds coming in. Where are they coming from? And the majority of our funding is coming from property tax at 46%. Sales tax is a big hitter with 23%. Other taxes, and then a variety of smaller revenue sources. The interesting thing here is that nearly 2/3 of this revenue is coming from property taxes and sales tax. Where does money go? Well, our biggest service to the community is our police, our safety services, 46%. And then a variety of others in here. You see, well, library doesn't even register, but events, community development, 6%, public works, 13%. So this is where we're spending our money. This slide is really just general fund, but it's a better depiction of how those expenditures are categorized. Most of it is personnel costs, that's salaries and benefits. It's to provide a service to the community, it costs, it's people are providing that service. So that's 72%. There's operations and maintenance of 22%, that's to keep everything moving. And then capital and equipment improvements are a small 6%. That's really kind of a sad small 6%. Someday I'd love to see that higher. I'm sure we all would. 10-year comparison of general fund. So I wanted to put this in here, not so much to talk about the numbers because they're a little hard to read, but more to talk about a pattern that we see. What this is showing you is the darker blue line is the revenues, and the lighter blue line is the, in mine it's almost a gray, is the expenditures. So when you look back at 0809, I guess the first year on this, what it shows you is that the expenditures exceeded the revenues. That always makes me nervous, but I wasn't here to know what that budget included. It may have had one-time costs in there for some kind of equipment that was very intentional that had been saved up in the reserve and spent. It doesn't mean that the budget was overspent. It just means that your expenditures were higher than your revenues for those years. And then it kind of flattens out and starts a normal pattern. And your normal pattern is that your revenues are usually equal to or a little bit more than what you're spending. And so the city did a pretty good job through the recession of holding really tight to their expenditures. And then about 2016-17, it started to shift the other way. 2017-18, that number is budget, and so I'm sure that it includes intentional spending, one-time spending in that, but it is something that we in the finance office will watch very closely, and we'll bring that back to council if we see a deterioration of fund balance is basically what that's going to equate to. I know we're interested in Parks and Rec, so I wanted to bring the same kind of illustration here. The addition on the Parks and Rec is really the red line, tells you what the contribution from the city is for the Parks and Rec operation. So as you know, most of the revenue is coming from the Galt market. The green shows the expenditures, and then the red shows what the general fund is helping to contribute to make it whole. It does appear that the red will continue, that there will be a commitment or a consideration by this council for a commitment to continue to fund those operations. But that pattern seems to be pretty solidly marked to continue. This slide, I tried to do a little bit of a comparison to numbers and something graphic. This is really what you've seen before at the end of 2017. These are the audited numbers for your general fund balance. So the general fund balance had, and these are in thousands of dollars, had 149 in non-spendable. Non-spendable is really prepaids and inventory. It's not really cash to spend. The economic stability is 4.338. That was based on the policy approved. Parks and Rec contribution is listed there at 1.3, and then unassigned 4.4. So the 4.4 becomes the decision points if there are, it's called unassigned. Some people call it unavailable or available, but it's something we will look at going forward to try and maintain some measure in that. I did want to mention that we know that we're doing more and more deferred maintenance, which means that we may have budgeted for something, then we're holding on, which means that that unassigned may grow over time. Eventually, it's just deferring the problem, though. All right. So, cost allocation plan. I wanted to go over this just because I know it's something that just changed last year. And I want to make sure that that if there's any questions on this or if I can add any value here, I can. So a cost allocation plan is an industry standard. It's a normal piece of the budgeting tool. And really the objective of that is to calculate the full cost of certain kinds of activities. So let me go back to the enterprise funds we talked about, water, stormwater, those act like a business. So you're supposed to have the full cost of what it costs you to operate that, which means cost allocation is part of that, paying the bills, collecting the money, moving any decisions along, all of those things, the attorney, HR, hiring people, all of that is part of what's made up of the cost allocation plan. And we are actually supposed to be charging for those kinds of things into other funds, particularly those that are self-sufficient. We also have an obligation to charge some of that, usually it's limited, to grants and certain kinds of funds. So it's kind of an industry standard. I guess the City of Galt has done a cost allocation plan for forever. But last year, we changed that model. And what we did was we took a look at how that was being derived. And I could spend a whole evening on just this topic, and we could do that. But really, what you're trying to do is determine what costs apply. These are central services costs, the cost of HR, the cost of finance, the cost of administration. What costs do apply that you cannot charge directly? In other words, I don't know how much my time I spend on the water fund. I mean, I could make a wild guess, but that's what it would be. Or I can go in and have a matrix that determines, based on something I do, how would that be charged out? A really good example is accounts payable. We have an accounts payable group, they pay the bills. So their time is going to be charged out. The way that, how much each one of the departments gets charged, or each one of the funds more appropriately gets charged, is based on how many bills are paid. It's a logical basis. So the new cost allocation plan uses things like square footage of who resides in a building, uses things like how many accounts payable items the invoice is paid, uses things like how many computers are you using in that area. And those are the tools, the basis for the cost to be allocated. So we can talk about the central service departments. They're basically charging to the operating departments. There's direct costs that if I know exactly what I'm spending on that, I can direct charge it. But that's not what a cost allocation plan is really doing. It's doing all the indirect costs. Once you get all of that calculated, then as a government agency, you don't actually charge all the departments because they may be within the same fund. As an example, police. I can tell you based on the calculation of what it costs the city to do that central services for police, but I'm not going to charge it to them because it's all general fund. It doesn't, it's like taking the money out of this pocket and putting it in this pocket. It doesn't make any sense. So, but there are things that do need to have a cost allocation applied to them. I could go into more detail on this, but I think I'm going to move on unless we have any questions. Okay, we're good? You're still awake? You guys good? Okay. All right, so now let's talk about financial challenges. I think one of the most talked about areas right now of financial challenges for all municipalities is CalPERS. CalPERS is the retirement system for the employees. The employees have been paying into their own system for a long time. This system, the best way to explain this is it's a defined benefit, which means that it's determined how much you will receive based on actuarials. If I retire at 55, I'm expected to live 30 more years, that's what it's going to cost. And there's a lot of math that goes in behind it. When our CalPERS agency is determining how much money they need to set aside to be able to fund all of the retirees, they, I would say industry-wide, whether it's government or private, nobody ever set aside those dollars going back, I don't know, 20, 30 years. Until Enron came around, people were not, companies, government were not setting aside the dollars. Then the government and the agencies, the accounting agencies came in and said, whoa, 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 you can't do this. You need to set aside the dollars. So we started doing that. So we have contributions that we're recording even though we're not paying the money because we're trying to true that up over the course of 30 years. I think it is 30-year plan. I think we're well into the 30 years. Now, when you look at CalPERS, they're getting money from the from the agencies, the municipalities. So we're helping cover our pensions for our employees. The employees are contributing in. And the third piece of the pie is they're taking all those funds and they're investing them. And when they're investing them, they're anticipating a certain return. To the extent one of those three doesn't fill its bill, one of the other two gets to pick it up. Generally, it's not the employee, just saying, although their rates have gone up too. It's generally going to be the municipalities. So the idea of the discount rate is the discount rate to CalPERS means here's how much I think our investments are going to earn. When they're off the mark, then they lower that rate so that there's more coming into them from us. We know this is a dynamic that hit CalPERS and all of the other pension funds. And we know what it's going to cost us in the next, from 1819 to 22, 23. And by the way, I highly simplified that explanation. There's a lot of details behind that. And it's going to be a big expense, and we're going to need to cover the cost. And there's creative ways we can do that, but at the end of the day, we have to cover the costs. So that's one of our biggest financial challenges, and all municipalities are dealing with it. The other thing is we have some deferred maintenance and deferred equipment items. These numbers are coming from the last budget cycle. We'll be looking at these numbers again in the next budget cycle. They may be higher. We know that we just deferred 2 years' worth of repairs and improvements, or a part of 2 years. So these numbers will likely be higher in the next budget process. Eventually, you have to pay the bill. Eventually, the car breaks down, or the roof leaks, or whatever it is. So we will have to look at this. We'll be looking at some more details in this when it comes forward, probably through the capital improvement plan, but also through some other mechanisms. I know this council talked about internal service funds, creating those. That's a great way to address some of these problems. It's basically you save up so that when you have to replace it, you have the money to do so. We don't have internal service funds. We've been doing what they call pay-as-you-go. So if I have 10 vehicles and I know they're going to each last 5 years, then I'm going to replace 2 a year, and I should have that in my budget. Because of some hard budget times, we don't even have that in the budget. So again, we keep deferring these costs. So that's going to be a big problem eventually. I don't know what to say about this one because this is so real, it's scary. Increasing regulations and deliverables without additional resources to fund employee and operations costs. So what that means is that our governing agencies may come in and say something as simple as, you need to have an attorney at each one of these kinds of events from now on. They don't give you any money for that, or they give you gas tax money for a road, but they don't give you enough for that road. You have to figure out the difference. There's a lot of that coming down the pipe right now, and that's it. The scary part about that is you don't know what the answer is. You don't know what they are. The services to the community are costing more than the service revenue sources. We see that already, and that will come before you also. I don't know why those came out in different areas. Minimum wage. Minimum wage is going up $1 per year for the next, until 2022, when it's going to hit $15 an hour. So how do you pay for that? Whether it's your hourly employees, which is mostly in Parks and Rec, or the compaction to other positions. I got these all out of bounds, out of lighting and landscape districts, insufficient revenue to fund maintenance. This is one of our current problems we're starting to address. How do we fund the maintenance when we should have a revenue source for that, and it's not enough? And then the whole structural imbalance. We need to be watching that, ongoing revenues less than ongoing costs. And you'll hear more about this through some of the budget workshops and the proposed budget. We'll want to be very careful that when we spend one-time, when we spend ongoing revenues on one-time costs or one-time reserves on one-time costs, that we're equating the two together, that we're not overspending those revenues. Oh, and minimum fund balance reserves. We'll be keeping a close eye on the policy as it exists, and we might be re-looking at that, depending on what your pleasure is. And then my favorite, which is again the unknown. When will we have the next recession? How deep will it hit? Do we have enough reserves to weather it? How long will it last? I'm full of joy. So how we'll try and address this is partially through a long-term financial plan. And let me talk a little bit about that. The long-term financial plan, which is being incorporated into a lot of municipalities recently, and I know the city has looked at it, we're looking at it quite a bit right now. The purpose of it really is, it's a financial modeling tool. So it's a tool for decision-making. It's supposed to be able to project forward, so it projects impacts of anticipated mandates and decisions. So decisions we make, what does that do to the operation over time? What does that do to your finances over time? This long-term plan will be a general fund focus, because at the end of the day, if anything else overruns, general fund it has the obligation to basically fill the gap. It is a living document, which means that it changes all the time. So it's not a document that we'll give to you and say, this is good for a year. That's not the case. Every time a decision is made, it will change that. Every time, whether it's internal to the city or external, any kind of a mandate will change that. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the assumptions, and we'll go over this in more detail when we look at the long-range plan itself. But what we do is we take certain kinds of revenue and we figure out, if I know what it is today and I have a good trend to evaluate what it's going to be in the future, then do I escalate it by a percentage potentially? Salaries and benefits might be a specific amount, like if an incentive were approved, maybe it's a specific amount, not a percentage. And then, of course, the overruns of lighting district and others. These are all examples of things. This is not an all-inclusive list of assumptions, but these are the kind of assumptions. Some of them will be percentage-driven, some will be a fixed amount. Others may be, I know the amount of that overrun, so I'm going to incorporate it in. Some of the examples of revenues that we know that council has approved that will be impacting this fund will also include things like the rifle range contract. We know when those revenues are going to start coming in. Things having to do with housing starts, we know when some of that will be coming in. So those things will be incorporated in. Permit fees, trying to think of all the different things that we mix in there. The billboard. If that gets approved, that'll become part of the revenue source, and that will be included in. Oh, and hopefully internet sales. That'll be coming soon, and that'll help our sales tax model. So expenditures, obviously the MOUs, and then the increasing costs. So that minimum wage I just talked about, it's hitting us, it's hitting everybody else. So all of our operating costs are going up. Everybody we're working with, they're raising their rates too, because their employee costs just went up. And the guy they buy their supplies from, costs went up. And so all of our operating costs are expected to start rising at a like measure over time. We're putting together a long-term plan that'll span 6 years. We'll have that ready for you very soon. And as I said, it changes. It'll change frequently. There's a lot of detail that goes in behind it. It's definitely a math model. But it'll become a very useful tool for you and for us to determine what is the real cost of doing business. Now I have no idea why I did that. Budget development. So I wanted to talk just briefly about this. We talked about how important the budget is to this entire process. Right now, you're in the middle of a 2-year budget, which means that we'll be doing a mid-year review. What that means is that it's a different kind of process. Because we do a 2-year budgeting, we're really doing kind of a refresh of what that looks like. What has happened in the last year that we know these numbers now are different, and where are those impacts? And then we'll be bringing that back to you. The evaluation, though, is not small. The underlying theme of the budget is really the strategic planning, which starts everything. The city manager is responsible for the budget per your municipal code, and he basically works with the departments to develop operating budgets in alignment with the operations and the strategic plan. Finance owns the process. We don't make decisions, we just own the process. So we make sure all the pieces happen. We start with looking at revenues. As we said, you don't really know what the rules of the game are until you know what your revenues are. So we'll start by looking at property tax and sales tax. Those are your big hitters. County provides some data. We have trends. We also have an expert consultant, expert in the state of California, and I think beyond, but provides a great deal of detail. And then we'll come up with what those increases may look like. Hopefully they're all increases. We'll add in user fees, other charges for services like rec events, grants, licenses, everything we can think of to evaluate the revenue. Once we know what the revenue is, we'll start with expenditures, and we'll look at the ongoing expenditures. So start with personnel. We use a term called FTE. It really means full-time equivalent. So I'm a full-time employee, I'm a full-time equivalent, and we'll look at each one of those personnel. As you know, all of those positions, whether they're filled or not, come here. So we'll budget based on those position approvals. We'll budget based on the benefits that have already been approved through the MOU. Sometimes those benefits are from other agencies, CalPERS. I guess we do Social Security, so any of those kinds of fees. So those are part of the ongoing costs. Then we'll look at operating costs. And the departments really have a huge help in this area. They need to help us with the operations. If there's something changing in their mandates and they know they're going to need a further supplier service, they will provide that information for us. If we can find efficiencies in any of these areas, we're pretty good at that so far. So those will all be collected and calculated. Then we'll go into one-time. Those are equipment and capital. There's a process called Capital Improvement Plan that will come to you with the budget process. That's a 5-year look ahead, but it includes the budget for the year in play. Those are all one-time costs. Oh, and special projects. So there will be special projects from time to time. Sometimes they are mandated. My example here is general plan. It's not an annual process, but it costs money for us to do it. And we have to do this once every 10 to 15 years. And that's a good example of a special project that'll show up in the budget. This entire process takes somewhere between 4 to 6 months. It's usually closer to 6 months because there is so much back and forth between finance sends out, here's our list of employees, do these all relate? Are these all at the correct level? They come back, we do an evaluation, we may check with personnel to say, hey, are there any kind of reclassifications or anything going on that we need to know about? There's always this back and forth work that's being done between finance sending out information, department supplying information, and then all of that gets reviewed by the city manager. And he may kick it back and say, I need a further explanation of this, or there should be efficiencies on that. And so this is a very collaborative process that takes quite a bit of time. The timelines are that your proposed budget will be to public study session and council in May, with a final budget to council for approval before July 1st. Now, I believe in our municipal code, we have the ability to continue operating if that approval is not done as of July 1st, but it's operating on an old budget that may be insufficient. So it's not advisable. Many agencies don't have a stopgap. Well, talk about the federal government, but we won't. So what I would say about that budget process is you're going to be seeing more about that, and we're going to talk about it a little bit here also. So in order for us to be able to do that, first step is the strategic plan and goal setting. Really important to us. We can't really guide the ship without it. We're going to bring forth a long-term financial plan. That should help a little bit. We'll probably need to look at service levels and evaluate that. Can we afford to provide this service we're providing today? Do we want to change that service? What can we afford to do? We'll need to review the LLDs and the upcoming CFD assessment districts. We know we're spending more money in these areas than we have revenue, so we really need to look at it and figure out, how do we handle this? How do we pay the bills? We will have a fee schedule coming to you. I believe it's, I want to say April. I may be wrong. And that fee schedule dictates any kind of fee changes. A lot of our fees may have a CIP attached to it for an incremental increase, or there may be a study behind it that says, hey, you're way out of whack with your fees. So that'll be coming forward to you also. There's a capital improvement plan, which I talked about, then the mid-year budget. We need to evaluate the infrastructure needs, streets, roads, bridges, storm drains. We really evaluate this every year, but with aging systems, it's very important that we evaluate these. We need to continue to evaluate the equipment needs. Even if we can't afford an ISF today, how do we pay for the replacement of vehicles and computers and all of the equipment that we rely upon to be able to do our jobs? Update and or refresh the city's financial policies. You'll see some of these coming forward. It's something on my whiteboard, which is full. And we know that there are some areas that we could really be more clear with these policies, but again, they'd have to come to you for direction. Does this make sense? That sort of thing. And then, of course, the budget workshops. One of the things that would be helpful to the finance group is to kind of know from the council what your direction is in regards to the budget workshops. There's a lot of information that I've provided tonight, but it's all kind of just conceptual, theoretical. We know we're going to need to look at each department and how they operate and all of that, but are there pieces in between that we need to focus on for assistance for you to help you make decisions and for potentially the public? What are those workshops? What do they need to be? And that's really the end of my presentation. You guys have been very quiet. Do you have questions for me? There's a test, you know, right? Did I tell you there's a test at the end? No?
Go ahead.
Claire, so you came from Stockton when you and I chatted. You told me all your background. So obviously you've came from a city that's a lot bigger than Galt, and working in Stockton, which obviously was a huge, with the whole bankruptcy mess, which you said you were part of fixing and all that. So from your experience, what is a 25% reserve fund, would you say is common? Or would you say, I know you mentioned that it's healthy, I know it's healthy, but what would you say the average municipality is putting away? I've done some research on this. I'm just curious your answer to that.
It's a really great question. I just went to a municipal finance, you're going to the league this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a municipal finance conference through the league, and they asked basically cities and counties, and they ranged everywhere from 16, 17% to 50%. I want to be at the place that has the 50%. What I would say is 25% is probably middle of the road. It doesn't make me overly confident in that it's really 1/4 of your year. So it's not, in other words, if you didn't have cash, you could continue to operate for X amount of time. That's not a very long time. So I remember when I was trained on personal finances, we were told, always have 6 months savings to pay your bills. City does not have 6 months to pay our bills.
Well, we had a presentation last year. I forget the lady that did it, but she basically, her exact words, we're in very, very good condition.
Really?
Those were her words. Yeah. I was just looking back at it. So I know that the 20 to 25% got approved in June of 17. That's when we took it from having 20% to 25. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have, money set aside.
Right.
But what I keep circling back to look at, when I keep thinking of that is that, it seems like since that time, I tend to hear the same redundant thing where we don't have money for this, we don't have money for that, we're cutting budget this, we can't fix this, we're just kicking the can down the road. But yet, at some point, we thought that we were in good enough financial condition to put an extra 5% away. I was just doing some quick math, and I would assume that we have a $13 million budget. Is that about, roundabout? Is that close?
Okay, I believe you.
Okay, so, it's about 800,000 extra. So if we were putting 20, we're putting 5, so 5% would be about 800,000. So since June of 17 was when it approved, then we would, since that point, would realistically have put away 1.2 million extra if we had not. So I'm just saying, it seems like a lot of things we're talking about that are challenges for us. We're trying to figure out, how to rob Peter to pay Paul, for use just as layman's term. But yet we're, we're putting. I struggle with that, thinking that we're.
So let me do a little, you're helping me understand your perspective by adding the math. So let me put it in this perspective. When the Great Recession happened, property taxes dropped in this area approximately 50%. So if that's close to half of your revenue source, and it drops 50%, and that doesn't even include sales tax, which also dropped. And housing markets would stopped, so all those permits stopped.
Yeah, I understand that, but
turn the tide really fast.
But you're talking about a recession. You're talking about a huge housing bubble that was.
That was a huge bubble.
That was a huge thing. The chance that something like that would happen again, like to that extent, it could happen. Yeah, it could be worse. But what I'm saying is that if my wife and I decide that we're doing really well with our finances and we're going to start putting a little extra money away. Because we're fearful that we're going to lose our jobs. Like, we could both lose our jobs. That's going to be a catastrophe. We got to have that money. And then our cars break down and we can't fix them, or, we need a roof on our house, and all these things add up. We're not just going to say, oh, we can't touch that money because, what if we both lose our jobs? That is for worst case scenario money, let's call it. But we can't just, I'm just looking at all different, we have to find money to fix these things somewhere. So I look at that first. It's like, in hindsight, were we financially set enough to put an extra 5%? Maybe we should have taken that 800,000, which would now, by my calculation, be 1.2 million. What could we have done with 1.2 million? There's a lot of projects I've seen come across like, for example, Parks and Rec presentation, there was, you know, a whole slew of things that we needed to fix. I'm thinking that could have checked a lot of boxes.
And so when we bring forward the long-term plan, that reserve is basically one-time money for one-time uses, right? Or for emergencies. When we bring forward that long-term plan, well, those are questions that we can put into the model. What if we spend X amount here? You know, one-time or ongoing, what does that impact the model? And that'll be a useful tool for you in that
One
regard.
more last question, I'm gonna let somebody else jump in here. So you, according to your slide, we have 4.3 million unassigned, which is basically available. On your deferred maintenance page, I did some quick math on that, except for the line item that mentioned vehicles needing 1 to 2 million of deferred maintenance over the next 5 years. So I just kind of split that in half at 1.5 million and then divided it by 5 and came up with 300,000. So I take 300,000 for 1 year and then added up all the other numbers you had. It was like $4 million. So, I mean, unless I'm missing something, I'm like, if we have 4.3 unassigned and I'm looking at a slide that says we need about 4 million of deferred maintenance to be taken care of, doesn't it seem like we could take care of a lot of the maintenance we need with some of these funds?
Yes, and so the question is, what's the impact going forward? So you weren't here at that meeting, but one of the questions that we will be asking is, what about Parks and Rec? What about that continued support? If we commit to that continued support, we know the revenues aren't there in the general fund ongoing for that. So how do we bolster the general fund in the ongoing side? Or do we fill the hole for 3 years and then have no money left? And then what about your deferred maintenance? So those are all considerations that will be looked at.
Your
How do you
Parks and
wanna do
Rec
that?
graph actually shows revenues looking like they're actually very consistent going back. I mean, I was under the impression that our revenue was declining a lot greater, but going back to your graph in 2008, I don't know if you have that handy, you could pull it up, but it looks like, you know, revenue looks pretty level, except for in 15, 16 where it looked a little higher. And the subsidy that we put in, I don't like to use the word subsidy, but the money that we chip in 16, 17, and then this year looked to be pretty consistent, and it actually looked the same as it was back, or similar to 08 and 9.
But
It's
the
one
cost
with-
of operation.
Yeah, right there. So if you're looking at the blue line, I mean, it looks pretty, you know, it's a little bit of variation there, but it looks pretty consistent. So, I mean,
Except for
I
the
would be
last
safe to
2
say
years.
that our revenue from the Parks and Recreation doesn't look like it's really declined dramatically since 2008, which would be what, 11 years ago?
The costs of doing operations, of course, have increased, not just in this facility, but in all operations, in your
Right,
business.
but the
and
revenue
all.
doesn't look that much off either. I mean, I'm sorry, the expenditures don't look that much higher than they were back in the very first as well.
Well, I agree with you that 10 years ago, yes, the general fund was filling the gap for Parks and Rec, yes. Yes, they were. So, but it's an ongoing problem, and it continues to deteriorate your reserves. So how long can you weather that storm?
When you worked in Stockton, they have a Parks and Rec program there, right?
Yes.
So you were obviously in finance there. What extent did Stockton contribute to their Parks and Rec program? What percentage of the Parks and Rec budget came from the general fund in that city?
I don't know what the percentage is, but what I would tell you is that they did not have another funding source. They did not have a 3773 obligation. So they didn't have that funding source. They didn't develop their Parks and Rec the way that this city has done. The citizens don't use the parks. They drive to Galt to use your pool. They don't
You're saying
use
that
the-
Galt has a better Parks and Rec program than Stockton?
Absolutely. Did I say that out loud? Yes. And I would say that because, and Stockton's just an illustration of many cities. They're closing their pools. They can't afford to maintain them. You've got an excellent pool here that people flock to. There are other facilities here that are really stellar, whereas other cities can't afford to maintain them. So is it a percentage of their general fund or their operations? Absolutely. I don't know what that percentage is, and it does vary per community.
I mean, I just feel like, I just think that, you know, we always talking about the money that has to be put into Parks and Rec. It's just too bad we have to do that and so on and so forth. I keep hearing that. seems as Galt just kind of got a little spoiled with the revenue of the flea market being what it was years and years ago. And, and then now it's not there anymore. And so now we like to just complain about that source not, having to put in more money. But in actuality, from what I've discovered, and I'm sure Rich could pipe in on this because he knows quite a bit about Parks and Recreation. I mean, I think most cities are putting in far more than 24% into their Parks and Rec program from their general fund. If they have,
Oh, I'm sure.
if they have a program.
I'm sure that like I said, most cities don't have another revenue source for it. So
Right.
that's true. What I can do is I can bring back to you something that looks at the area cities, percentage of Parks and Recs, but they're all going to be a little bit, they don't really follow the same pattern as Galt because
It's apples and
Galt
oranges, I
is
get it, yeah.
unusual that you have that additional revenue source.
All right, thank you.
So, Claire, let me clarify. The 4.4 million,
Mhm.
we still have it. It has not disappeared.
Nope, has not disappeared.
Okay. I get asked that every once in a while. How did we manage to come by that? How did we save that? I know you're new, but
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know specifically for Galt. I can tell you how reserves acquire through other municipalities. Reserves are hard fought. For the most part, because they are your insurance policy, they are your risk mitigator. They are hard fought. They're usually, currently, lots of cities are coming up with policies. Cities are coming up with more than just a economic stability reserve. They're coming up with layers. The governor just put out his budget, and he added yet another layer to the reserves because all of us who have weathered this storm for a while get it. We understand how important it is. So it's really fiscal restraint, fiscal accountability that holds tight to if I don't need to spend it, I'm not going to spend it, that creates a reserve. And then an intentional setting aside. Yeah, you could equate it to your savings account. I would call it an insurance policy also, because we're basically self-insured to be able to operate. So you've set aside a savings account intentionally for certain purposes. The GASB recommends, GFOA, Government Financial Officers Association, they all recommend reserves and they recommend different minimum levels. Basically, at this point, they're recommending that if your reserve level drops to 5%, you just need to start cutting costs, laying people off. That kind of, and we don't want to go there. We know that there are escalating costs that we are already obligated to. So we need to look at all of those factors.
so getting back to the reserve that we thought we were going to use for deferred maintenance, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, one of your goals was to have like a perpetual fund that we could use for the ongoing repairs we know are going to happen over the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, during the budget presentation this last year, what was explained is we're trying to establish internal service funds to address our vehicles, our deferred maintenance, and basically those accounts to kind of address those ongoing. The 4.4 million, which is the yellow area on that chart, we were going to use that. However, it was mispresented, and that yellow area is actually being used right now to balance your general fund because your revenues. Or I say it the other way, your expenses exceed your revenues coming into the general fund. So that yellow area is kind of helping to balance, those general fund expenses. I think, I hear a lot of discussion and, parks is a very important, part of this community. We have some amazing parks. That's what makes Galt, and they're very important. So I guess, there is a lot of discussion, Councilmember Farmer's correct, or Vice Mayor Farmer's correct. There's a lot of discussion in this community about, the parks and the maintenance. And I think really the focus needs to be, what are our priorities to start, kind of addressing some of these maintenance issues? Is it parks? Is it buildings? Is it vehicles? And how do we, use that 4.4 million wisely over the next several years. If you burn through that 4.4 million, then all you have is your reserves. And then I think you're getting in a critical point, because then you're going to start burning into your reserve accounts to balance your general fund. And we don't want to go there. So yeah, that's where I'm trying to get to this long range financial plan that our finance department is working, and Matt is having, I think, a lot of fun with putting this plan together for the council and present that. It's some tools that I want to bring to the council so you can start taking a look at what the policy decisions that you make, what impact does that have on the budget, and through that strategic plan process, where are our priorities, where should we focus? We're going to come to you with some recommendations, but we're going to want to see that discussion from the council, and I'm really actually looking forward to that discussion through that strategic plan process.
So do you foresee, we kind of were hoping for perpetual fund, do you foresee any more money coming, maybe not as much as fast, but do you foresee that if we spent all that, do you foresee more money coming into the picture ever?
Well, that's
is it?
part of the long-range financial plan, and we're working a lot with Chris and Mr. Arias and Ms. Mendez on kind of the future of development, and we have to kind of look at all areas.
Okay.
The council recently approved some kind of incentives for hotel development. We have another the old Royal Delta Hotel, which is going to be Days Inn, coming online. We've done some analysis on that. You're looking at probably 200,000 in TOT when it's kind of fully operational. Those are really good revenue sources for your general fund. How does that tie into your plan? And so those items will be in that long range plan, and when we think they'll kind of get to that full potential, and you're going to be able to see those lines on where we're at. The revenue sources that was talked about this evening is the billboard that we're taking through a process right now. That has a potential of some revenue source for the city, which actually is a recreation because it's on the 3373 area property. So we're trying to be kind of look at those kind of immediate sources. Of course, sales tax, wherever you're trying to attract other companies that come in that are your higher sales tax generators. That's a long process, hard to quantify sometimes. A lot of times it takes years to do, but we have good staff in trying to address those items. Longer range down the road, the council has in the strategic plan the Central Galt is what I'm calling it, Parks Area Master Plan. It's where we have the grant to take a look at our 45 acres of that our market and our sports fields in this city hall sit on. What is the vision and what is the future of that? And then talking with Mr. Solis, the Galt market in 10 years is going to be a lot different than what it is today, and that revenue source may not be there. So we need to start visioning and planning today for 10 years from now, and that's a lot of times very hard to kind of wrap your head around, and conceptually for councils as well, because you got kind of 4 years here to kind of get things accomplished, but really your job is to look at the next generation, the next 20 years, and what is this community going to look like. So you have some kind of short-term, mid-term, long-term goals that we're looking at to help that revenue.
Thank you, that helps.
I have a couple of questions, if I may. The first one is, I guess it's more of a policy question about fee schedules. From my previous experiences that I've had, there was always a percentage in which the department head or the city manager would have the ability to raise or lower fees if it was within a certain percentage. Do we have that policy here, or do all increases or decreases in fee schedules come to the council?
Let me kind of address that. Maybe have Mr. Solis, back me up on our last fee scheduling, and might be able to get some help over here from Michelle. Our last fee schedule, we added in some language. I as city manager, I like to change fees unless I come to the council. But with our parks and recreation areas, when we get some certain flexibility with market and all that, there is some flexibility for the city manager to adjust fees for kind of marketing purposes. Maybe help me out.
Well, there's things that we're able to do. The city manager has authority to basically make deals with tournament directors, rentals, people that are going to, groups that are going to bring in a high number amount of people to the city that normally wouldn't come here to stay at our hotels, buy our food, all our gas. We don't have a percentage for our programs. What you have here is every program that we have in a rate sheet that breaks down each cost, what it actually costs, direct costs, indirect costs, total costs. And some of these costs are kind of high now. As Claire talked about, with the minimum wage going up, that is the majority of our staffing for our programs. And we're just not going up, looking at the $12 rate that just went up now. We're looking at the $13 rate that's going up in January 1, because that's when it'll have the most impact on our programs. So that'll be one of those things that council will have to decide, how much are we going to charge our citizens
Right.
to participate in our program. We really don't have, in the past, with this city manager and the past city manager, we would sit down and go, what can our citizens bear? You know, obviously, they can't pay $55 to enjoy a day at the pool, because the pool just costs so much. So we have to set those rates at what, we'll look at what Lodi does, Elk Grove does, and kind of come to a happy medium for our programs.
Okay, and I guess my question was, thank you for that. I think that answered what I was getting at. So if we were charging, and I'm just going to throw a number out, $10 to play water polo in our pool, and we want to charge $12 next year, does that approval come to the council?
Yes, it does.
Okay, perfect. So just a couple of other questions. First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was Government Budgeting 101, and it really helps as a refresher to kind of see it again. And I understand restricted versus unrestricted monies revenues that come in. And there are some restricted and unrestricted monies that come in that have Consumer Price Index escalators in them. Do we have a lot of those?
Michelle?
I know it's kind of a hard question.
With regard to fees,
It is.
with regard to fees, we can generally, as a rule, collect what it costs us to perform a service. So when you're talking about Parks and Rec, in general, they're actually charging less than what it costs. So what we can do is charge up to the amount of the cost for the service. And I think that our annual fee schedule that comes back to council for approval, a lot of those are at CPI, just because we've set the original cost, that what the cost of the city is, and then annually, we will do a CPI adjustment.
Right.
But also, the departments will look at that, like Armando's talking about, there may be some things that are maybe above CPI, like the minimum wage cost, so they'll look at it for a realistic picture of where it should be, and then we'll work from that perspective as
Right.
well.
Right. And what I was more getting at was, like with lighting and landscape districts.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think I don't want to get on a personal soapbox about them, but I think they're just a failing way to do business anyway. Probably a great idea at the time when it was implemented years ago. But clearly the CPI is not going to keep up with the cost of services or the cost of doing business in that restricted fund. And so at some point we're going to have to, and I think you addressed it a little bit today, at least begin to look at that and see what that's going to look like in terms of services and or increased revenues and how we do that and those types of things. And so I think that's going to be pretty important moving forward. I just want to make that, and my question, I guess, was more of, do we have a lot of those funds coming into the city either through general services kinds of things where we have a CPI that's attached?
We try to have a CPI attached to everything. Unfortunately, we don't have it attached to certain kinds of things, including lighting and landscape district.
Right.
And so there's no winning on that one.
Yeah.
But we try to include CPI or some measurement. So there may be a fee study done periodically on certain types of fees because they're not going to follow CPI, and we're supposed to be covering our costs. So we try to.
Okay. And then just one last thing that relates to capital improvement, and this is just a philosophy that I have, and in looking at our general fund expenditures, we're spending 46%, so our biggest investment on police, and we have, I think I saw in there, significant capital improvement needs there. And I'm not, stating that, all the capital improvement money needs to go to the police department. What I'm saying is I think as a council, as we're looking at our investment, where we're spending our money and how we're spending our money, we need to use the capital improvement program to kind of gauge how we start to take care of our investment. And that's, instead of, at least in my mind, instead of saying we need X, Y, and Z, we look at where our expenditures are based on our strategic plan and our priorities, and then say, okay, we need capital improvements in all these areas. A baseline might be, let's see where our investment is from our revenues and begin to go in that direction as it relates to rebuilding and restoring some of what we're doing.
That's a great idea. Now, a lot of times that's coupled with a couple of other measurements, like what's the value of you're talking about vehicles primarily, but when you extend that out, what's the value of the different facilities? In other words, maybe I use the sewer plant. It's a small amount of operation, and yet it's a huge amount to replace that facility in X amount of years. So all of these measurements become valuable in the evaluation, and I think what you described is one of those.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Kurt?
No, thank you. I thought it was a great presentation. I think my takeaway here today is that we have some uncertainty in front of us. We have, as was pointed out, we have expenditures exceeding revenues. And I think before any decision is made, I think we need to get into the budget workshops to see and prioritize, what do we have to do to maintain the minimal amount of services before we start talking about, capital expenditures here or, capital replacement. I think we have to have a better handle, at least I do personally, to understand where the money is being spent now, what's the revenue shortfall, and how do we fill that gap in order to just break even to where, these graphs are at least even and we're not lopsided on the expenditure side. So I think tonight was real good. I look forward to the workshops and digging into more detail as to where we can enhance revenue and, if necessary, cut expenses in those areas.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you for the presentation. I like to a little bit more clarification on the reserve fund. I know the 25% is a reserve fund, and reserve fund, like in 4.4 million, we have it there, we cannot use it. What level, if something, for example, the recession comes up over a long term, we don't have the revenue, what level the reserve fund or 4.4 million we can use it? Any purpose if we necessarily have, for example, there's a recession coming in, we don't have the revenue, is a long term.
So obviously the council will make priorities and make decisions on whether it's spending that or building it up further. I would encourage you to look at a couple of things. One is this long-term plan as we bring it forward. One is service levels. What are the priorities for the community to maintain or to cut? revenue sources, huge conversation going on right now, but we know that that takes time. The council does have the ability to modify certain decisions. Of course, you're going to have me in the background cautioning you. Things about one-time versus ongoing, things about what is a prudent reserve level. As you said, somebody just a few years ago said 25% is kind of big. I heard somebody in a conference a month ago say 50% was not what they wanted. They wanted higher than that because they knew the volatility in their own property tax base. And they were not happy with just a 50% level. Of course, that was somebody in the Bay Area that has a lot at stake with property values. So these are considerations to be made.
Thank you.
I want to, yeah, what Paul said, it's kind of like what he's basically getting at is, you know, this is our rainy day fund, but how hard does it have to rain before we start looking at it? Again, going back to the analogy I used before, you know, if my family and I are putting away a certain amount of money because we're doing well, you know, and my car breaks down, I'm not going to walk to work. I mean, that's just silly. So, I mean, at one point, we can't, let's just talk about Littleton, for example, if we have deferred maintenance on that building, and we say, well, we can't touch this reserves, that you know, because we're waiting for the big recession to come again, we can't touch that. So then now that deferred maintenance, instead of being 400,000, is now 450,000 next year, and the next year after that, it's 500,000, and we keep kicking the can down the road, and it becomes more expensive later on, instead of just taking care of that. You were saying about having 50%, some cities want 50%. Well, maybe those cities, it's like apples and oranges to Galt, maybe those cities don't have as many parks as Galt does, so it'd be hard to compare a city who has 50% reserve and they're not happy with that and they want more. I don't think we should be sitting here saying that, you know, that 25% is poor and we need to not touch that money. I guess we're talking about revenue, specifically fees. Mr. Councilman Lozano asked about fees, and I know we went through this not too long ago. I actually spoke myself in public comment against raising fees, only because I just feel like, you know, it's like breaking my daughter's piggy bank open to put a roof on my house. I mean, you raise $5 for a kid to play softball. What is that $5 really doing? We raise $5 across the board. We might come up with 2 or 3, 4 or 5, maybe 10,000 extra dollars. But then the next week we're spending 20,000 on a consultant to look at something we want to do in town. I mean, we're definitely, I don't think our priorities are straight. We can't look at, you know, we have this billboard idea coming, you know, that could generate $100,000 for Parks and Rec. That's great. But to be honest with you, 100,000 is just a drop in the bucket for what really needs to be done here. I mean, if I run a restaurant and business is bad, I'm not just going to start raising prices and think it's going to fix itself. I need to start looking at other things. I need to look at, you know, are we spending too much for tables and chairs? Are we spending too much for food? I mean, I think right now we're talking about little tiny things, and I know those little things can add up to big things, but we're talking about little things that affect the public, that we're basically going right to the taxpayer. I mean, Galt has correct me if I'm wrong, but Galt has one of the highest sales tax rates around. 8.75%. Am I? You're going to kind of, you say I'm not,
sorry.
That's not true?
My vision is more, maybe more broad than yours as far as location. 9% is not unusual in
Name a city that has a 9% sales
these
tax
valleys.
What we can do is kind of do a quick survey of
We
our
can do that.
surrounding cities
Bring
and
that
provide
to
the council with the sales tax rates are.
I'm
for
sorry, I'm
surrounding
just, you know,
cities.
this is just,
Mhm.
It's the easy-
we're refreshing
easy way
this,
to
and I'm
address
just,
that.
so basically I'm just making a point where I agree with Rich and also with Kurt that we need to kind of figure out where our expenses are going and then focus on what we think is most important, and most importantly, what's important to the community and what's important to the citizens, because I think that what's important to them doesn't always line up with what's important to the city. So
we will bring you information to try and assist you in those decisions.
thanks.
Any other discussion?
So thank you very much for your time. I wrote down a bunch of notes, and we'll be talking about the next steps, and looking forward to the strategic plan and where that leads us. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So Kimberly, do we need a motion to accept the presentation or?
No, this is not an action item.
Accept and report.
So I
Just need
adjourn,
to adjourn, yes.
adjourn the budget workshop, Dawn.